Hi guys, this is Ori Chikochi again and welcome to another video of Ori Talks Football. Ori Talks Football, it's Ori Chikochi and I'm glad to be back with you again. Again guys, like, subscribe, leave a comment on the video. And guys, yeah, I'm glad to be back and we're going to be talking about the game you love the most. We're going to be talking about football. Today I'm going to be talking about Kaizer Chiefs. And I think a continuation from the video that I released last time about talking about things that Kaizer Chiefs did to neutralize Mamelodi Sundowns. But today, I'm going to be diving a bit deeper into talking about the aspects of the game that I feel like there's still a little bit more work. There's still a lot of work that still needs to be done in the team. And there's still a lot of aspects of the game that Kaizer Chiefs still need to really improve on. And I think things that I learned from the game that they could apply into the games that they're going to move forward into, and also a few additions that they still need to make in terms of the profile of what they need. And because guys, you know, I've heard a lot and I've noticed a lot of chatter. I've seen a lot of, people are positive. Kaizer Chiefs fans are happy. I'm a Kaizer Chiefs fan I'm very happy with the start that we've had to the season. But I'm very measured in terms of my expectations of where the team is and what's needed to be happened. I know in South Africa, when you're happy, be happy. When you're down, be down. But I think at a time like this in the season, it's very important to be very measured and be conscious of what the team still needs and what they still need to do in order to push the team forward. I feel like sometimes we get so excited sometimes that we don't, I always say that we put our foot on the throat, and then the moment we get a bit of excitement, we see a few wins, we let the foot off the throat, and then we almost let them off the hook in terms of being able to make what's the changes and the decisions and the tactical things that need to be made. There's still a lot of technical things that need to be improved. There's still a lot of tactical improvements that needs to be added to the team, but also additions in terms of the squad. I do still think that now, after injuries and after the game, I think we can holistically look at the game and say that there's still a lot of things that need to be done. And then the first thing that I'm going to talk about is, first of all, is the possession and build-up play. I think Kaizer Chiefs against Mamelodi Sundowns, as I said, guys, before, if you've noticed and you went and studied the games they played against Mamelodi Sundowns, the 3 or 4 different times, the tactical approach and the way that they approached those games was very the same. They played in a similar style, they played in a similar system, even though in the previous games that they had, like under Nabi and the co-coaches in the previous seasons, the only thing that they changed was the fact that Modi would start as a left winger. But as you saw that as the game started to play, you could see that whether it was generally because it was Bradley Courts, you'd see that we would defend in a 5-3-2 and maybe would attack in a 4-3-3. But it's more or less what Kaizer Chiefs did in the game against Mamelodi Sundowns. And the reason why I'm saying is that Kaizer Chiefs need to improve in terms of the possession. The possession metrics against Sundowns are always going to be low. But also the other thing that we have to also look at is the fact that the tactically Chiefs as a possession-based teams, they are still very predictable for me when I look at them. They are still very rigid in terms of the way that they play. They are still very there's still a lot of quality missing, especially in the passing, especially in the combination play. And the reason why I say that is the fact that the build-up from the back to front, from the back to midfield to the attack, is generally more or less what they've been doing in the previous seasons, guys. Remember also, guys, is the fact that Fernando Cruz was with Nabi in the first season when Nabi was there as a Kaizer Chiefs coach. So a lot of the tactical principles that Nabi or Fernando would have instilled are still the same tactical principles and the same phase of play, same movement, same things that they've probably have used from that time to now. So that's why I say that a lot of the things that I'm seeing are more of the same things that they've been using Kaizer Chiefs. The build-up phase, the build-up from the back, Kaizer Chiefs still build up in a 3. They don't generally build up in a 4 where you have the 2 fullbacks high out wide, like maybe what Sundowns does or what Pirates does. You will still see that Kaizer Chiefs builds in the 3. They take their wing back, which is always Monyani or Solomon's on the right hand side, is given the responsibility to be the furthest attacking outlet there. And then you find that the fullback, which is the left-sided one, generally keeps his width or keeps or nips a bit in. He comes back in, which is generally Bradley because Pasekamako is generally injury prone. So he generally stays in defense, and Kaizer Chiefs builds up in the 3 and generally gives support to the middle field. But it's very rare, So he just keeps his width and he makes sure that he helps the team to build up. But then the biggest issue is when you come from midfield to attack. And guys, this is what I wanted to say, is the fact that the midfield makeup of Kaizer Chiefs has very similar players. Kaizer Chiefs have Adolf Mtasingwa, they have Leboha Mawoye, they have Spetlile Ndlovu, they have Mtetwa, they have Touch Mawaso, who obviously is still injured, is going to come back. And they have and Thabo Cele, even though he's on the outside, there's been a few rumors in the past few days that he's coming back into the squad, which would be a surprise for me. But those are the midfielder profiles, and I will put Cele on the outskirts because this is what I want to say. Kaizer Chiefs have a lot of high energetic ball-winning players. They have a lot of players that have a lot of energy. I would call them as central midfielders, more 8s than 6 and a defined 8. More 6s. They have more 8s in terms of central midfielders who are box to box. I also look at Mtetwa, and I look at him as he's a defensive midfielder, but as a profile of a box-to-box player. You see him when he has the ball, he has a lot of energy to run up and down. But they do not have a recognized 6. The only player that I could say maybe is a distinguished number 6 from the profile of studied from him in Adolf Mtasingwa is him, who's more of a sitting 6. But the thing I'm talking about that I still need to improve in possession is the fact that the phase of play when they come from midfield to attack is very predictable, because a lot of the profiles they have in the midfield and a lot of the profiles they have in the attack are very similar. The attacking players are players, especially their wingers, are wingers who keep the width. They keep the width. They make sure they stay on the line. They don't generally... I always say that as an attacking player, you need to have more than 2 or 3 strings in your bow. Kaizer Chiefs, a lot of the players, Velepai stays on the line, keeps his width, doesn't generally come in and drifting in the half spaces, drifts in the congested areas, keeps his width. The same thing as Modi, keeps his width. The same thing as Wandile Duwo, if he plays as a winger, keeps his width. The same thing as Elangeli Klepilu, who I think is out of the players in terms of the profiles they have, is the better one, him and Mfundo, but he keeps his width. The same thing as Mfundo Vilakazi, keeps his width. Bartman, he keeps his width. And the reason why I'm saying that they keep their width is that you have to be comfortable enough to play the ball while Sajid is playing inside. And one thing I've noticed is that after 3 or 4 passes, generally, especially when they get into the attacking thirds of the team, they generally lose the ball very quickly. After 3 or 4 passes, Kaizer Chiefs, they generally lose the ball. And the way that you do that, the reason why I say is that, one, there isn't enough building up schemes, there isn't being enough cohesive passing patterns, there still isn't good enough combination play, and overloading of the central areas is something that I will still say it again, they still are lacking in terms of being able to overload the attacking areas. And I think the attacking players of Kaizer Chiefs out wide and the midfield, because they are players that are very predictable in what they do, it makes it very easy for defensive teams to be able to play against them and mark, because they generally show them the same pictures that they're always doing. I'll give an example, guys, of Kaizer Chiefs, the last title-winning season that they had under Stuart Baxter. I studied the team, and as much as Kaizer Chiefs didn't score a lot of goals, the one thing that you noticed, and I remember this thing that Stuart Baxter was always talking about, was the fact that our movement and our passing in the final third wasn't good enough, or it was good enough. We worked a lot of our movement, we worked a lot on our quality, our box entries, we worked a lot on how our approach play when we were able to get into the final third, and what we were going to do when we got in those areas. If you remember quite carefully, Kaizer Chiefs generally played with Spiro Chabalala on the right wing or on the left wing. They played with George Lewisi. They played with Renelo Solonyan, and they played with Willard Katsande. In the attacking midfield position, they generally played Bernard Park, and then there's a striker, they played Kingston Tinkata. Sometimes it would be Siabonga Nkosi as a 10, and then they would have Kingston Nkata as a number 9. Sometimes it would be switched up, and then sometimes it would also be George Maluleka, and obviously there would be Masango. But the thing that I say that I'm trying to show you with all of these players is those, and Josta Klata also was there before I forget. The profile of those players were players that you couldn't profile them or defend against them because they were very dynamic as a team. Chabalala wouldn't hold the width. George Lewis wouldn't hold the width. Mandla Masang would. So there would be very good movement and very good box entries and good movement in and around. But that movement would be very coordinated and very cohesive. And they were very comfortable in playing out what Just As Easy is coming in. And the reason why I say it's coming in is because it's so important that as an attacking player and as a midfielder, you don't give the opposition team the same picture. You don't give them an understanding that if I'm going to mark Ori, I'm going to mark Spetlengov, I'm going to mark Velepai, I know what I'm going to do because they show the same things again and again. That's why you don't see those players growing, because they never add aspects to the game that makes them different. What is the thing that has made Oshun Napolis one of the best players in the league? It's because you can't profile him as a wing. He's an attacking player. He can stay inside, he can come in, he can play as in a half-10 position, he can stay outward and keep the width. What is the thing that has made Moremi develop now into one of the best attacking players in the league? It's the fact that you do not know Moremi can come inside, can drop inside, can combine in the middle, can keep it with and beat you with pace out wide, but also the fact that he can run in behind. So you are giving 2 or 3 different problems to your coach. I like the thing that Sponiso Gatra said in another podcast, that I like a winger that also runs in behind. I don't want a winger that always only comes to the ball and gives me the same picture. And that's what I'm saying is that, especially in the attacking areas of the Saints, a lot of the players from Kaizer Chiefs, especially in the attacking areas, they're not decisive enough, but also they still don't have that game understanding of knowing which spaces to occupy, when to drop into the half spaces. And generally, I feel like because Kaizer Chiefs overloads the wide areas, it makes it very easy to be able for teams to defend against them, and for them to be a team that doesn't have good mechanisms or automizations through when opponent press or when the team is playing against. There isn't good automisms. When I say automisms, I mean movements that define how a team plays. They don't play through the progressive line. They don't progressive, and there's no conviction in how they are passing. There isn't any clarity. And because you don't have an understanding of what you are doing, it makes it very easy to lose the ball when a team shows you a certain picture. So that's the same thing that I'm doing. When I come into the middle field, is the fact that in the middle field, they still do not have, Sipombole is a very good player. He's not a number 10, but he's an 8 who can control the ball. He's very skillful. A player like Renelo Tsolonyan is very good, can play the ball, but can come into the box. Because just don't. And the only player I think that has that type of profile that can do that is Lebohang Maboy, because he has the quality to score goals. He's been played as a number 10. When he came to Wonders, he was playing as a number 10. And I remember even when he went to SuperSport United, when he got on loan, he was playing as a number 10. And I think he has that quality to be able to play that role. But he has to learn to play that. He has to make runs into the box. But there has to be combinations. There has to be a bit more skill. There has to be more fluency. And there has to be that arrogance with the ball that comes, that we know what we are doing with the ball. And there still isn't that type of arrogance, especially in possession. I think Kaizer Chiefs are very good in transitions. I do think when they play on turnover football, they're still very good. That's the other thing that I'm talking about when I looked at my notes, is that they're still very good in transitions on turnover ball. They still are very good. They can still do better. But the reason why I say that is that on turnover ball, you could see that as much as Sundowns in the game against Chiefs, they were showing they were pressing very well, because Sundowns press. They have a sort of gegging pressing where when they lose the ball, they make sure that they press wherever the zone where the ball is. They make sure they try to crowd the ball and then they press it as effectively as they can. So that's something that that's announced it. But you could see that Kaizer Chiefs were very dangerous. They were very fluid when they were playing on turnover, because the profile of the players that they have are players that are very good when they have to play on space. Still go to when Moxina Trokal was talking about that Kaizer Chiefs are like a team that want to play with speed and pace. But when you are playing against teams that are very structured defensively, you don't need speed. You need speed, but speed in your passing and speed and quality in your movement and your automisms and your building up play, your passing patterns. There's to be speed and understanding and know-how. And that's why I say that they still need to work in that area. They are very good on turnover ball. And when I go to my third point, when you then become better in your passing patterns and in your optimisms and your passing and your movement and the profile of and your dynamism and how you attack a team, then you create more quality chances. And that's where I say is that the type of chances that they are creating are still not at the profile or quality that I would say is a high quality of opportunities. And the reason why I say that is that they are very good. That's why I said that Kaizer Chiefs have good strikers at the moment. Flavio Silva, I think if you give him a chance, he'll score. He's a very 1-in-2 striker. If you give him 2 chances, he's gonna score the one. Probably Mr. Napa will score the one. The same thing as Kanyisama. I think he just needs confidence, but he's that type of profile that will score when he gets given a chance. Wandile Duba, even though I do think that his movement in the final third in terms of his anticipation of where the ball is going to fall, or his anticipation and his finishing has to improve, I do think you can see that he still has that sense of knowing where the ball will fall. And generally, if it's not for his finishing or his final decision when it's how to shoot, the type of quality of his shooting and what he does, he generally have those qualities. So I don't worry about what options they have as a striker's position. There are rumors that there's another player that they're looking for in an attacking as in a striker's position. But I think they have good enough players to finish off the chances. But I don't feel like those players are being created enough good chances for them. I don't think that there's enough combination play. I think the box entries of Kaizer Chiefs are not good enough. I don't think there's enough runs in behind from the wingers. I do think the wingers, they keep their width, but there isn't runs in behind. There's enough runs in behind or coordinated runs from the midfielders, even from the fullbacks. The only fullback, the run that generally Monyani makes is he always makes that run in behind, but it doesn't make it well enough because, and I also think that this was said by a lot of our legends. Fondo Vilakazi has to put himself in most goal scoring position. He needs to smell the goal. If you're gonna score goals, you need to get in the kitchen. And that's the reason why I say is that if Kaizer Chiefs are gonna create more quality chances, they need to make sure that their runs are good, their final set combinations are very most crisper, there's more conviction, the cutbacks. And this is the thing that I always say. And the other thing, there has to be a bit more cutbacks. When you're able to make box entries and you're creating cutbacks, that's one thing that Sundowns does very well, is that that's why when I was speaking about, that's why I'm using the profile, the reference of the game against Sundowns. The reason why Sundowns puts Matthews and Van Wyk in the half spaces is the fact that they want coordinated movements, that when Modau can get the ball out wide, Van Wyk or Matthews is making that run in between. I like to call it between the 16-yard line and the half box. There's that half space there that those players are making those runs to cut back, and that's why you find the Ikram Reyners, and the Brian Leon are making those runs to score. So they are giving the ball that the midfielders play into the striker is a ball that the striker is anticipating and running into, And that's the thing. You have to give your striker a ball that he can run to in a good attacking position. And when you're playing in such a congested areas, your passing and your movement has to be sharper. You have to attack in numbers in the box. There's to be more sharpness, and there has to be more coordination in whatever do. And quality at the end of the day is the answer. There's to be more quality in terms of what you're doing. There's to be less predictability. And the reason why when you are playing with the less predictability is knowing, hey, I don't know when Phileas Tabowat is going to do, or what type of run my boy is going to do. I don't know Mfundo is going to do when he makes this run. Hey, when you don't give the predictability in what you are doing, it makes it harder for a defensive team to set against you. They put numbers in the box, But then they are very afraid because whatever you do it with you do it sharply, and you do it with quality. And that's what's missing, is that a lot of the players for Kaizer Chiefs have to get into the box. You have to have good movement. You have to cut the ball back, and then there are runners that are coming to our balls. If there are cutbacks and crosses that are being made when there are runners coming into the box in numbers, it gives an opposition team a lot of issues to be able to do. They can't defend a lot of numbers because they do not know where the ball is going to fall. And that's why I'm saying is that there's to be repeated movements, there's to be repeated automisms, there's to be things that are repeated in terms of familiarity when you get to the ball, and then that's where you can have the freedom and quality to be able to move and create better. But there's to be better chance creation, there's to be more XG, there's to be more chances given to the strikers, so that the Flavios, the Kanyisamayo can be able to get into the 10 to 15 goal range, because that's what you need to do. If you're going to be a team that fights for the league and is competitive in the league, you have to make sure that your striker and your attacking players are getting 10 to 15 goals, each and one of them. I'm talking about Elangeli Pile needs to be getting 10 to 15 goals. Flavio Silva needs to get 10 to 15 goals. Kanyisema needs to get 10 to 15 goals in the league, because you can see that goal scoring is a big problem in the country. But when you create, and when you ultimately give your striker or your attacking midfielders scoring those amount of goals, it puts you in better situations to be able to score goals. Because generally, Sundowns, and I've looked at Orlando Pirates, to win the league, they're scoring the 40 to 60 goal range on average. They're scoring 40 or 50, higher up 50s to 60 goals in the season. Kaizer Chiefs need to get that, and if you're sharing the load with that, that's how you're going to be able to improve as an attacking team moving forward. And if you've noticed, guys, I'm not talking about defensively, because I think the defensive makeup of the team, I've explained it in the game against Mamelodi Sundowns. They are not considering a lot of opportunities. So when your defensive makeup and your defensive principles are set in stone, the harder thing to do is to improve as an attacking unit, and that's where I think they still need to improve a lot. And the fourth thing, guys, they have to be less passive. Kaizer Chiefs, what they generally do after scoring a goal, they are very passive when they score a goal. When they score one goal, they become relaxed and they don't take advantage, and they put more teams under pressure. Those are the things that they still need to do. They still need to improve in making sure that when you score one goal, go for the throw, go for the third, go for the fourth, go for the fifth. Put teams under pressure and score goals. That's how you are able to put yourself in better positions in the league. That's how you're able to put fear into teams. When teams are seeing you beat team, when teams are seeing you win 4 or 5 nils, it puts a lot of fear into the other team, because then those teams that come against you, they're going to do something that is not natural to them when they play against you, because they are more nervous about what you are doing. So when players get into, when a smaller team is playing against you, when they are attacking, they are more nervous, because they know that if we give Kaizer Chiefs the ball and they have the ball, we're not going to have a lot of the ball. So when we have the ball, or we're giving an opportunity to play against you or to attack, they're going to be more nervous and they're going to be less efficient, because they know that they have to use the one opportunity they have. But when you have control and you've scored the goal as early as you can, and you're scoring the second and your third, you're putting teams under pressure and you're taking the soul out of those teams. So I think that's the biggest thing. I do think that they need to improve the midfield control, the defensive compactness, the attacking compactness, the possession, as I spoke about, and the pressing has to improve. I think that's the other thing that Kaizer Chiefs need to improve, is that the pressing, they have to develop a better press in terms of what they are doing in attack. They have to press a lot better, because they are very passive. There are 3 or 4 situations in the games that they played in the previous games against Golden Arrows, against Kruger, and against Sundowns. When Kaizer Chiefs press together as a team, I think they are very good. They put a lot of teams under pressure, and then they give the ball back as quickly. Just the example that you saw against Sundowns, when they pressed together as a team and their lines were aligned and the players understood the zones that they needed to press to, they won the ball 3 or 4 times around against Sundowns. And that's what you need to do against smaller teams. When you're pressing, you have to press, your compactness of your pressing has to be better. And you need to make sure you put the teams, you need to press the teams higher up and keep them there. They mustn't get the confidence enough to play the ball and come into your defense. There are many zones in the game where teams, because they are easily playing through Kaizer Chiefs press, they're keeping the ball and they're keeping the ball for a long period of time. And you cannot give teams confidence to be able to play against you for long periods of time. You need to press them and you need to control the game at higher end of the pitch against them more. And I think that's the other thing, guys. I think though that they need to develop this, the pressing, they need to improve. I think the other thing that I'm going to talk about is the fact that they need to be able to defend a lot better the crosses and the second phases. One thing that I've noticed is the fact after they've crossed balls into the box, after teams have an opportunity to play against Chiefs, they don't generally attract runners when they have in the box. Their defending of crosses, especially in corners, is very suspect because there's been a few situations where the opposition teams is playing off second balls and off corners and off crosses. So they need to defend that a lot better. And if you've noticed, a lot of times when teams are playing, I have a superiority. And the players, especially in defense in the middle, have a lot of lapse in concentration. So they need to defend the second phase attack a lot better. They need to make sure that they and ultimately at the end of the day, it's game management. When you're scoring and you're winning the game, manage the game, keep possession. The biggest thing that makes Sundowns the best team in Africa is that they know when to pick up the pace, they know when to drop down the pace, they know when to play slow, they need to play fast. They know what is required at what time. And that's the thing that Kaizer Chiefs need to do. They need to develop a better game management. But that's going to be a lot harder because I think a few of those players, of those areas that they need to do is why I'm saying that the players are missing in terms of the additions that they need. Because I don't think from the players that they don't have a recognized number 8 who is a controller who can contain the tempo of the game. Such as is in the number 10 role, they still don't have that type of player that can control the tempo of the game. They can drop the pace of the game. They can increase the pace of the game. That can make sure that the team knows when to slow down and when to attack, knows when to manage, when to defend deeper, when to defend higher up, when to defend in a low block, when to press up and press the team. You need to have two or three of those players in very important positions. And that's why I say that it's very important that that's the one area that I think that they still need to work on. And that's why I say that, guys, I think they still need 3 players. I think they still think they need 3 players. As I said again, I still think they need a right winger. I still think they need a number 10. I still think they need a number 8. The number 8 and the number 10 have to have more quality. They have to have more quality on the ball. I don't think the options that they have right now is good enough. A lot of games, especially when they are playing against teams that are better than them, I think they need to have players they need to have a midfielder. One of the midfielders that unfortunately has been frozen out is Thabo Cele, who I think can offer that type of quality. A player who has that arrogance on the ball, but also has the quality that, I don't want to compare a Sipombole, but, imagine having a player like Sipombole in the middle field playing with Mutetwa, a player that can it's a threat to an opposition team because they know that we have a number 10, let's say it's a Mududuzi Shabalala, or let's just say a Tembo Kosiloshi, if you see where I'm going. Imagine Kaizer Chiefs have a player like a Tembo Kosiloshi in the number 10 and an Esipombole in the number 8 role, But the Esipombole, who's energetic, who has the capacity, and the number 8 position, who has the profile to make those runs into the box, and it can make a team play, but can also add a bit more quality in the final third when it's required. And they also have a Tembo Kosilosh who's giving the final passes, who's making those runs, who's scoring the goal, who's making the killer passes for his team, who's pushing, who's making his team play. I think you need to have those players that can make the team play, especially in the midfield. I feel like in the kitchen, guys, you need to have a driver. You need to have a Marcelo Allende guy. You need to have that player that that player that is a piano, he can direct the orchestra. when is to go fast, when it is to go slow, when is to make combinations passes. You need to have that player, guys. And I think that's the type of player that Kaizer Chiefs are missing, because they have similar profiles. And I don't know who they can get now, because I would have loved a player. I know this is different because I think the South American market, I think Kaizer Chiefs can make the most of it, because I think from the players that they have right now, I don't think there's a player in the country who I can think of that can add that type of quality in the team. Because I do think that in terms of energy, combativeness in the midfield, they have it. They have that, but I still think they need that stardust and that quality. And I think them being able to scout that type of player, I think is going to be important. I still think they need a number 10 who can do that. I think there's still a lot more growth needed in Duduzi, also in even Chislett. As I've spoken in previous videos, I think Chislett trips in and out of the central attacking zones. I don't think he's commanding enough in that number 10 role to be able to make the team tick and play. He likes to drift out wide. I do also think it's the same with Shabalala. I think with Shabalala, he needs to be coached into that too. Yo, bro, look for the ball. Play. He's a good dribbler, but as I said, there's a difference between a player who's a good dribbler with the ball, who can play, who can make runs in behind, and a player who's comfortable in playing in congested areas, who's comfortable in playing in the pockets, who can take the ball, who can do 1-2s, who can make the team tick and make those final passes. There's still that aspect of his game. I can see that he does get in goal scoring areas, and yes, he can improve on that. But I also think one of your responsibilities as number 10 is to make the team play, make the team tick, make good proper decisions in the final third. And I think that's an area that he needs to improve. And I think if Kaizer Chiefs can get a player of higher quality, because I think Lucas Ribeiro is going to Esperance, I would have loved a player of that. I still think Kaizer Chiefs need that. And on the right wing side, I still think they need a left-footed player, a winger, who's dynamic and is quick, who can give the same type of balance that Pili gets on the left wing on the right, so that he can beat his man 1-1. I don't think Velaba is a right winger. That's why I say that I think he's a left winger. I also don't think I think Chabalala is. I think Fundo is a number 10 for me. I don't see Fundo as a right winger per se. That's why I say they need a right winger who can pass and eliminate. A player is very comfortable on the ball. I would have loved a player like Tapelo Masego who would have done that, because Tapelo is equally comfortable staying out what just it is coming in. And I think they still need that type of profile of player. But those guys are the aspects of the team that I think Kaizer Chiefs, those are aspects of the game that I think Kaizer Chiefs need to still improve on, still need to be made additions on. There's a lot more, in terms of what I would say. I've spoken some of the parts, I've already spoken them in previous aspects, but especially looking at the game against Sundowns, and also looking at what they need to do moving forward to be better as a team that is consistent in the league, to be better as a team that is fighting for top honors. And also, remember, Kaizer Chiefs, I think, need to get into the quarterfinals. Quarterfinals, most probably quarterfinals of the CAF Confederation Cup. They need to improve those aspects in order to be better as a team. And I still think there's certain profiles that they're missing, that they don't have, that they need to make additions in the team. On the coaching side and on the quality side, there's still a lot of improving that still has to be coached into the players. And as I said, guys, there's a lot of young players, so it's going to take a long time. They're going to be inconsistent. For me, from what my outlook is, they're going to be inconsistent in terms of what the team has and what the team does, because they have a lot of attacking players, especially in the high critical zones in the attack. And those, when they're playing with a lot of young players are always going to be up and down. So in that area, I would like if they were able to make experienced additions who know what to do and who understand the pressure, one, of playing for Kaizer Chiefs, but two, also understand what's needed in the game at a certain point, and experience can only get you that. So quality first, experience, and yeah, guys, those are the things that I just wanted to speak about. I'm going to give you more videos, guys, speaking more about Kaizer Chiefs. I think this is they are not going to play this week. They're probably going to play in the next week. So I'm gonna give you more, guys, about the aspects of the team, what's needed, how the team can manage the tempo better, how they can manage defensive distances, how can they threaten the opponent in attack. Those are aspects of the game that I just love talking about, that those little nuances that I like speaking about. And I like watching a team and being able to be scrutinized little aspects of the game so that they could be better. And that's what I'm going to talk about, my tactical insight, my know-how, and my understanding of what Kaizer Chiefs need to be able to be improved. Because all of us as Kaizer Chiefs fans want the team to be the team that's winning the league, the team that's competitive in the Confederation Cup, that's winning cups and everything. But we need to be constructive and clear with what's needed to happen to that, So I just have a balanced view on that. And guys, I just hope that you support, like, subscribe, guys, and leave a comment on the video. And I would really appreciate, guys, if you support this channel and make sure that it goes to people and we talk more, because I love this, guys. I love talking about the game. I love the most, and more is gonna come. So I hope you enjoy the evening. Until I see you next time. Bye bye.